reconnect.
The Bliss Business Podcast, the show about empathy, connection, and consciousness in business. Today's episode is brought to you by Zero Company, your paid search, social media, and programmatic ad experts.
Welcome back to the show. We were talking beforehand about being a badass, and I just want to say, Lyn, every time I feel like I'm a badass for a moment, like, I hiked up like Mount Whitney and did an ice axe thing. I get up there and I'm like feeling myself. Then comes like an 8-year-old around the corner or something, or some 80-year-old around the corner. And I'm just like, okay, yeah, you were feeling yourself, weren't you? Welcome to the show, everyone, where we explore empathy, connection, and purpose and how they transform business from the inside out. I'm Stephen Sakach, joined again by Mike Liwski, and today's conversation brings us into the heart of what it means to lead with empathy and live with purpose, especially in moments of uncertainty and change. According to a recent Gallup study, only 23% of employees strongly agree that their organization cares about their well-being. Sounds about right. And yet teams who believe their leaders care deeply outperform those who don't in nearly every measurable way, from engagement to retention to revenue growth. Today's guest is someone who has dedicated nearly 3 decades to helping people lead from the inside out. Mike, introduce our guest today.
Stephen, I'm liking that line, bringing those qualities from the inside out. So looking forward to talking more about those today. I'm delighted today, Stephen, to introduce Lyn Christian. We're thrilled to have her on the show. She's the founder of SoulSalt Inc, as well as a certified coach, speaker, and author of the Amazon best-selling book, SoulSalt, Your Personal Field Guide to Confidence, Purpose, and Fulfillment. Lyn's journey began at Franklin Covey. There as the director of innovation, led or really helped shape the coaching practices of countless leaders and entrepreneurs through her work there. Their signature SoulSalt method has helped individuals and teams develop the mental resilience needed to lead with intention, compassion, and clarity. So we're looking forward to learning a lot more about that today. Lyn, we are so excited to have you on our show. Welcome.
Thank you, Michael. Thank you, Stephen. It's a delight. And it's such an honor to be a guest on a show that's about putting love and empathy ahead of profit and performance, because we know through the research that when we do that, the other things follow. We have to put the people out there and let them lead with us. So thank you for being a small dot on the map that stands for that. It's really an honor to be with you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Yeah, we're trying.
Yeah. So like I said before, I read the book from front to back, loved it. Oftentimes my kids are asking me what I want for like a gift. And sometimes I say, I want you to read this book. So this may go on the, on the list there. But I'm all, I need to live it a little bit first. So
yes.
Properly, after going through the whole book, it's like, oh yeah, this is something you kind of need to live. Can you tell our audience just a little bit about what SoulSalt is?
Yeah, so SoulSalt is the name of my company, and I didn't name my company this name. I'd been in business for 3 to 5 years, had a few people talk to some marketers. Consistently, they were getting feedback. There's one thing that Lyn does that we can't put our finger on. It's more esoteric. It touches the soul. It's things like Lyn is talking about unique personal needs and values and leading from the inside authentically, like the salt of the soul. And then there's another part that Lyn does, which is strategic planning, tangible, tactical skills that assist us to communicate better, to be more emotionally intelligent, to make better decisions, to not be so reactive and be more responsive. And so when the marketers came together, they said, we think you should be called the salt of the soul. And that didn't roll off my tongue. So I just cut it down, transposed those and said, okay, we'll be SoulSalt, because that's what people are getting. Then when it came time to brand the book, my publisher was like, that's the name of your book, because you're assisting people to excavate their inner badass, their most inspired best self. And to do that, they have to find the salt of their soul and then find their truth and then live it. And so it stuck. And then occasionally people would start calling me a badass, and I didn't know what that meant. And then they added the inspired, and I was like, I really am not sure what that means, but we're running with it because people seem to have an identity that when we work with them, they do become more inspired, and they feel more like they're confident, more purpose, more fulfillment, and that makes them feel more badass, I guess.
Yeah, I like how you mentioned the word like excavate relating to the process, because that's really what, when you're going through the book, that's kind of what it feels like. There's a lot of questions, and it's very interactive for people to fill out things out there. But I really do love the purpose section in there because it comes at it from multiple ways, which I've always felt is something, you can try one method and maybe it just doesn't hit, but when you're coming at it from multiple ways, it gives a little more depth to maybe the purpose that you kind of have, or it comes at it from an angle that you haven't really thought about before. Could you talk a little bit about how you came up with that methodology for finding purpose? Was it using different experts and, just through your own coaching? Where'd you?
Yeah. So all of the exercises, and really you nailed it, Stephen. This book is like having a year's worth of coaching in between the covers. If you do all the exercises and then apply them, like you were talking about pre-show notes where we were just discussing, you're going to go deep and excavate the salt of your soul. When we look at purpose in particular in those exercises, very much like the other exercises, these were things that I've had in process in my own life and lab since the early 90s. And so really working through and trying to make decisions, having to come out of a closet a couple of times. And we all have closets. We all have those proverbial parts of us that we're not willing to identify with yet. We have artists. I had worked with somebody who wanted to be a clown that was a teacher. And so, you have these transformation moments, and all the exercises are backed with some neuroscience and some social sciences, and they are things that have been proven over decades with clients that work. And to your point, when it comes to purpose, there's no one right way. There's just different angles. And you remember probably the illustration in the front of the book that shows us as these beautiful, huge gemstones that have different facets. We have to look from different angles to really get our ideas together to clarify who we are. Because purpose is so big and it can be daunting, and yet it can also be very simple, that when you take it and you reframe and refocus and redirect the divergent to convergent networks in our brains, eventually you come up with something that sits and rings true to the person. And then they have a starting point. So that's my whole goal, is to give people the starting point. And then, of course, the book is designed to every 18 months or every 12 months, review it, update it, and maybe your purpose shifts or your values shift a little bit, or your unique personal needs, or you understand a superpower more. You're always evolving. So it's for the generative individual who's always evolving, willing to do the work, look at things from different angles like you were, and then come up with their own answers. So I worked hard to use coaching language, social science language, neuroscience, and ask questions that would facilitate neurons to finally become aware of something that could be daunting, like naming purpose. Long answer. I hope that answered it.
I love that.
No, it was a good, good sort of summary. In fact, it sort of made me think about, a question that I always, love to ask all of our guests, Lyn, on this show, that is about purpose and, sort of the importance of purpose. And I guess maybe you could answer it as either the importance of purpose for an individual. Sometimes we like to talk about it as the importance of a purpose for an organization. So the question really is, what is the role that a well-defined purpose plays either in the success of an organization or the success of an individual? How would you answer that?
Yes. So from my experience, it plays a couple of roles. And I think it's an astute question. Let's say on an individual level, it gives you that confidence and that calm, that peace of mind when you have to make decisions, maybe in a split second, where you go, I know my hell yeses and my hell no's. I know my yes and my no. I know now because it's aligned with purpose, so I'm going to consider it, or it's not aligned with purpose. Why would I even consider it? So it's a great clarifying tool, helps us respond versus react. It gives us confidence to know that the choices we're making are going to work out long term because we're staying true to ourselves. So we've taken time to identify what it is. And in the moment when we're in that intersection, we know turn left or right, keep going forward, whatever it is, back up, go to another intersection. It just gives us that peace of mind and inner guidance. It's like an inner compass, and lets us know, even if the world's in chaos, I'm okay because I'm navigating according to a path that I know is true to me.
Yeah, we always talk about it being the North Star. I like the I know my hell yeses and my hell no's.
Yeah.
Mike?
Yeah, no, I was saying that's a great point. And I think, to Lyn's point about the calmness in being able to make quick decisions. I was thinking as an organization, right? You apply that same thing. It's going to, it comes down to, okay, what you're going to invest in, the kinds of people that you're going to bring into the organization or surround yourself with. So, from there, even, right. It helps the organization in a much, much bigger way.
Yeah. And, we know that we are much more effective and efficient. We have more space for things that empathy and compassion and taking consideration of how people are doing when our focus is not scattershot. When we know what we're going for, we know why we're going for it. We envision where we're going ahead of time, and we strive to drive together. We then have time for the things that really connect us to the people and the purpose and the functionality of why we're a business. And I think the marketplace senses that. I think we're getting tired of spin and inauthentic options.
Yes.
And we're really drawn to the more organic, if you will. You go to the store and want to have more organic fruit and vegetables, the more organically grown companies that are authentic to something, it's more palatable.
Yeah, I totally agree on that. And that's really one of the reasons on this podcast is that we can tell a marketing story, but we really want you to live it. We want you to live it organically because your customers are going to feel that, if you're just, talking the talk.
Yeah,
Lyn,
100%.
Lyn, for leaders who may be disconnected from their mission, how do you help them reconnect and lead with more purpose-driven leadership or heart?
Yeah, and I run into that. One of my specialties, and this is really an exclusive track, is to work with people who feel a little lost. And it's usually by nomination or referral. Somebody can nominate themselves. If anybody's listening and they're interested, you can go to Google and search peak performance SoulSalt in quotations, and it will take you to the application. So to your question, what I find is that we start with basic things like their values, unique personal needs, which is something new that my book introduced, that we all have personal needs, that if they're not getting met, they're kind of running rampant through our behaviors. And as adults, as Keegan talks to us about adult theory of development, we can self-author, but sometimes we feel lost, like we haven't been self-authoring. We've been going for performance and profit over authenticity and purpose. And so when I work with somebody, we stop, we clarify what they're really going for. Like, what do you want the rest of your life to look like? And then we go back to values, unique personal needs, back to their superpowers. And by the time we've completed 3 or 4 sessions, the person's starting to see themselves in a new way. They're starting to see new possibilities, and they start to understand that it's probably time to start using these authentic pieces of them and not just give them lip service, but we learn how to integrate them into behaviors. And then we go to purpose. You can notice the purpose is toward the end of those 8 major modules in the book, because now when they reach purpose, which can be so big or it can be small, it's just quite profound when they've done all that other work that it slips in and they go, oh yeah, when I'm home with my family, here's my purpose. When I'm at work, here's my purpose. When I'm playing my role to myself, here's my purpose. And I feel like there are a lot of executives that have been pushed and shoved and maybe look on paper like they're a success, but there's something shallow and hollow, and they want to return to themselves. And there is a way to lead. Like my most successful entrepreneurial clients, one that has created a nice multi-million-dollar tech company, said to me, the key to his success was the authenticity that we exposed him to and that he has kept himself aligned with. So I hope another long answer to a question.
Yeah. And you brought up like sort of the systems where you're kind of excavating early on in the book. And one of the things you mentioned was the unique personal needs, which is this sort of concept that can be something that really just very small, and very unique. I think this is where you're talking about like light bulbs, right? Changing the light bulbs, right. I believe for yourself in there, but it's these little things. these sort of little things that help. I don't know if it balance you or that that is just like maybe tweaking you a little bit, but if you don't really address them or understand them, these are one of the first kind of things you go through in the book process, right? Can you talk a little bit about the unique personal needs?
Yes, and so what happens is, like it happened to me last night, Stephen. It's really uncanny this is going on. I went out for a walk with the dogs with my fiance, and we were out walking. And as we were leaving the house, I noticed there was a light bulb missing over the dining room table. Well, I have this system because when I see that, there's something inside of me that goes, I don't know, I have to tolerate it. I don't know why. I like to have full light in my light bulbs here. So when we got back, I just reached up in the cupboard where the supply was and changed it. And what we're talking about, every single one of us has this thumbprint of needs that we may or may not be aware of. Some of us have a need to get results, and that's why it just bugs the crap out of us when we can't check things off. Some of us have a need for peace and harmony, and that's why some people brush things under the carpet and are not authentic until they learn to be more honest, because they want peace and harmony and they think get it quick. Some people need more detail and quality and information. Like information is their love language. And so they need to learn to ask for the details and the facts and the figures and say, I do my best thinking if you give that to me. And some people need to motivate and inspire other people. So they need a platform to share. We don't always take into consideration that we have these personal needs that when they get met, we're stable, we're sane, we're sustainable. And so that little idea changed my life. And I incorporated it into the book because when we have unmet needs, we are less than our best self. There are behaviors running through our lives trying to get that need met, and we don't acknowledge it. And it's just like food, water, and shelter. If we don't get those met, we're not at our best. So yes, that's a very important part. And that's why it's pretty early on. I think it's the second module that has the exercises. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, I love that, going through it. And I'm like just looking around the house, and we're kind of going through a move or getting ready for a move. And there's like boxes. If I'm my wife is going through it right now. This is not satisfying her unique.
Right. She has a personal need for order.
Yeah. And I'm feeling it for her when I'm reading that book and just looking around. I'm like, oh man, I need to help here in some way. Getting back on track with leadership a little bit.
Yeah.
I'm thinking about, you've been coaching for a while. What has changed about the way we think about leadership during the time you've been coaching?
Yeah, there are different camps on this. Unfortunately, some of us have become socialized into trying to find a leader and then just acquiescing agency to that leader. So there's a certain sector of people listening that will recognize that that's going on. And so there are some people that are just leading and being able to say whatever they want to get this group of people to follow them. And then there's there's the other part of the world where you guys plug in, where we're seeing a very clean-cut distinction that's not transactional like that first model. It's transformational. And what these individuals are interested in is working with individuals growing the individuals. They have almost a social contract with their employees that said, my job while you're working for me is to also develop you and to give you opportunities and let you use what's best about you for our benefit in the company. Yes, we're paying you. And at the same time, we have a moral situation here where we take care of you to a certain degree because you're taking care of some of the work. So it's this more alignment with what's right to do with people. And there's also a model that I've come up with too. There's another piece that kind of is a subpoint to what I just said, where there might be 3 levels of leadership, which is there is that level where a leader needs to have vision, see where we're going, say it, set it into play, put anchors into place. So there are projects or structures that make it so we can follow that lead. And then underneath that, they have to do some management and make sure that people can hang on to that structure and that there are meetings and follow-ups and proper delegation and project management so the work can get done. So there's alignment to vision. And then these leaders also have a 3rd level, which is let me sit and talk with you, at least the people that I'm close to and responsible for, and let's have one-to-one meetings. Let's coach and mentor. How are you doing? What can I do to support you? How's life going? And so those 3 levels are starting to come into play for some of the best leaders that are more transformational than transactional. Does that make sense? The emotional intelligence levels and the transformational.
Yeah, Mike, Lyn mentioned it, that transformational. We've talked about that, moving our advertising and our marketing from transactional to transformational. It's the same sort of concept. It's the same language that we're speaking, right? I mean,
right.
Yeah.
And that's kind of when you get to a company that has its consciousness or its soul of its company kind of evolving and elevating to that place. They move from transactional to transformational, and those are the kind of messages they want to go with.
Yeah.
How many times have we had that conversation, Mike?
Oh, and well, I would say too, it's the ones that, you know, take the time to keep going back to that. I feel like, you know, it's very easy for people to sometimes slip away back into standard modes of operating, or, you know, when you start to feel certain pressures, external pressures, to just fall back into those modes. So it's, you know, sometimes, like you said, having these systems in place, they serve almost as reminders to have you keep coming back, you know, to those things. Yeah, no, it's a constant conversation for sure.
It is. And Michael, I think you're right. Those 3 levels are necessary for the empathic leader, you know, who feels for the people. Set the vision so we have clarity. Make sure that there are systems to align with it, that it's not just lip service, and then check in on how people are doing personally. So, yeah, I think you caught it. The leader's job is expanded now. They can't just command and control. They can't just say things and spew orders. They're responsible. I mean, they're at the top of they're in the crow's nest of the ship. They are responsible for seeing if we get there or not.
Yeah, I mean, I would say for sure. And then I think, you know, how you've helped them infuse empathy into, you know, that discovery process, one for themselves, I guess, right? Because you have these needs, you have to be, you know, in touch with those personal needs, but also empathetic to the idea that, hey, all these individuals that you're working with also have those needs, and empathy plays a big part in, you know, keeping those at the forefront.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah.
Thinking about empathy and systems of empathy, anything come to your mind as far as processes and methodologies to build that into companies or teach it?
Yeah, I think one of the first things, and I have a boot camp that I do sometimes twice a year, and I do it for the public, but I also do it privately, where we go through a series of finding how do leaders have intelligent conversations, because we know that 9 out of 10 conversations miss the actual mark. If you think about a target and you want to hit the bullseye, most of our conversations are hitting the outer rings and not really hitting the bullseye. And so using a blend of conversational intelligence from Judith Glaser and the knowledge of neuroscience of how conversations create chemicals in the body and in the brain, bringing in some of the radical candor, bringing in some repair conversations, some of Gottman's work where they've studied relationship. we go to basics of how do you rewire the way you're talking and be aware of, are you drawing people into that transformational space where they give you referential power, like they want to follow you, or are you pushing them and repelling them into a place in their brain where they're in the back of the brain being reactive and protecting themselves? And so one of the things we do is work on skills, and I can just quickly give you one of those very quickly.
Yeah, that'd be great.
There are
because I was going to ask. So
Yeah.
Let's do it. Let's do it.
Yeah.
So let's break what we're talking about, empathy, down, because empathy isn't actually the most powerful tool here. So first, let's talk about sympathy. I feel for you, but I'm going to stay distant. Like, I see you're really suffering, and I go, boy, it must be hard to be sick today. We're not really helping. That's sympathy. We're not making any big moves. And, it sees suffering from the outside and it stays distant. So there's really not a good use for sympathy, especially in business. Empathy takes that deeper. It feels with. For just a moment, the person who has empathy is feeling with the other individual, and they go, oh my gosh, you're not feeling well today. You're not going to be able to be optimal. I get it. I get it. And so you step into the world and you understand for just a slight second what it feels like. But we're finding that scientists are training people like massage therapists not to live in empathy, because you can take on the other person's pain and your brain is registering the very same. If we had an fMRI machine, your brain would be registering the same pain. So you're in pain, they're in pain. What's the upgrade now is going to compassion. I feel with you, and I'm going to support you if you want to get out of the pain, to get yourself out. I'm not going to enable you, but it's more like, oh man, that's a tough place to be. I can see that you're not as productive today. What are your options? What do you want to do when you're not feeling so well? Like, what are your options? Like, can I brainstorm with you? Do you want to isolate today and work in the lounge? Do you want to go home and not work? Like, we start to see that compassion has this element of feeling with and then calling to action what the other person can do, with support, not help, and not doing for, not enabling. And you can kind of sense that is probably the more powerful version. I mean, Brene Brown's into that. Again, a lot of social scientists today are into that. I think Tanya Singer, she's a leading social scientist and neuroscientist out of Germany, has written a lot about it. So those three distinctions are the things to pay attention. That's the key today. There's sympathy, there's empathy, and if you can upgrade to compassion, that's the best one to use. How's that?
Yeah,
that's we're all about that upgrade to the compassion. Putting that into systems in your workplace. And do you feel something we talk about a lot is, how consciousness evolves in humans? Do you feel the younger generation are coming into the workplace, getting to that, looking for that empathetic, compassionate job or position much quicker than, maybe someone when I'm 50 or, 55, as I am, where I'm looking for something with more meaning in what I'm doing? Do you feel like they're coming into the workplace looking for meaning much quicker?
Yes.
Younger.
Yes, I definitely see that. And with my children are in their 30s. My son is now just turned 40. So I saw them as they were growing. They became more socially conscious faster, and they wanted work that was more purposeful and more meaningful. Instead of, I need to go get a job and make some money, they were like, well, what do I love doing? What's going to meet my skill set? What will I be able to sustain? Where will I feel like I've left a bit of a legacy, and so definitely the youth are coming in wanting more purpose-driven and more conscious, compassionate leadership.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that, Lyn, because one of the questions actually I did have about the book, and I think you answered a little bit earlier, is that somebody could find their purpose and then go through the book again and see if anything's changed. But that was one of the questions that I had for you, is going through that exercise of identifying your purpose. When should that start, or what's the right age to do that?
Well, I like to do it at a younger age, but for smaller things. So it's not so daunting when they get older. Like, what's your purpose for this next year? Or you want to go have fun and being on a soccer team. What's the reason behind it? What's the why? And so having conversations about what's the motivation and what's driving them, which is actually a function of our gut. If anybody's watched my TEDx talk, I talk about head, heart, and gut wisdom. We're getting to deep identity and we're getting to deep motivation. And that's when we recruit more of the individuals. So if we can assist them to start recruiting the reason behind what's moving them and what's the impact they want to have on that soccer season, or they want to take ballet, or they want to summer off. We ask about the why behind the what, and then we let that drive. I think when they get later in life, which is probably you'd need to be, we know that our brains don't totally form until around age 25. Right. Yep. So getting to some of this more esoteric stuff that could move, they're going to have to revise later. So you could wait until later, or you could just keep making revisions and allow the person to evolve.
Yeah, and sometimes I go round and round thinking about our education system, right? So you're supposed to decide on what you want to be when you grow up, right? Go to college, yes. Right? And yet your prefrontal, cortex isn't really fully formed yet, but you've all of a sudden made this life-altering.
Exactly. Yeah. Kind of crazy. That's why I think we're finding now that some people will have up to 10 identities, different working identities. I do a lot of work with reinvention, assisting people to reinvent their career. Yeah. And that's more common because you make a decision when you're 20 that's going to change by the time you're 35.
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. I like the idea of the small purpose in the mix of there, because like going through your purpose processes in there, it was like, okay, I'm gonna take a small one, I'm gonna take a medium and like a big one, and just kind of rerun each of those through some of those questions and queries in there. And I thought it worked great for each of those. We've got an audience question. Let's go to, pull it up here. So resilience is a recurring theme in your work. What daily practices do you recommend to build and maintain resilience in both personal and professional life?
Wow, what a great question. Yeah. And that is true. Resilience is a recurring theme because it's the ability to bend and not break when things get tough, right? It's the ability to keep going in the face of obstacles. And so first of all, currently we're reading Shane Parrish's book on clear mind, clear thinking. And he says something. He said, put yourself in a position where you can respond versus react. So I've gone through my life. From the minute I wake up, I have a routine, and I am starting to think about the next night, the night coming where I want to sleep. So I have a morning routine where I get sunlight in my eyes and I do certain things for hygiene and for my health and meditation. So I set my day up. So I have the strength I need. I do my training in the morning. I'm a fencer. So I fence on the national stage. I go to national competitions. And so I do my training, I do studying video of myself. The whole morning before I start work, I've set myself in a position where the things that are most important to me, connection with my higher power, connection with my body and what it needs to start the day strong, connection with nutrition, connection with my significant other. All of those things are taken care of. So when I step into work, I'm in a position where I've taken care of me and I'm ready to be there to hold the vessel for other people. So that's just one place. And then when I finish work, I have a wind down routine too, of getting some more sunshine as it's going down on the horizon. That helps with our ability to sleep, because our circadian rhythm's told time to go sleep, the sun's going down. Eating nutritious food, sleeping 8 hours, getting the hydration. There's so much that goes into my day. It's almost as if I'm trying to be an athlete of life. And do the things that put me in a position. So I guess the message is resilience is going to be your partner. It's the thing will get you through the tight things and help you respond versus react. And it's those tiny incremental little habits, if you want to say, or routines that you give yourself that edify your soul, take care of your body, and also give you a chance to connect with what's biggest and best in you. How's that for an answer?
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. long ago, I read, we're all parents here, and it's like teaching your children grit is like the biggest determination of future success. And so, yeah, I totally agree on the importance of that resilience and grit. And
and
'cause
there's
life can throw things at you, man. So,
and it will. It's going to.
and it will,
Yeah.
guaranteed.
And let's extend that just really quickly. I know we're talking a lot about empathy today, and empathy is one of the 4 things that Daniel Goleman in his profound work in the 90s when he published Emotional Intelligence said we need in order to be more successful than even our IQ can take us. Like our EQ is more important than our IQ. And he said empathy, feeling with others is one of those. Motivation, and it's to what you just said, Stephen. This is what got me that grit. Staying engaged even when you have obstacles, keeping your eye on the prize. The third one is calming yourself. When you're upset, can you self-regulate? And the last one is, can you delay gratification? Can you keep working on something even when you don't get the reward yet, to keep going so you can have that bigger reward later? So those 4 things are components of emotional intelligence, the power of empathy in that, and then also the resilience. And those are things that came from Daniel Goleman publishing his work on EQ is more important than IQ.
And I think when you've got that clear purpose in your life, it's really going to help you through all those things, through the times when you're challenged or you're not feeling like you're making progress on things, and you're looking, as long as you got that big picture, I think that's going to keep re-energizing you to move in the direction that you want to toward your purpose, even if it's, something that's not realized at that moment.
Really well said. I couldn't agree more. Yeah.
Lyn, this is the question we ask a lot of our guests on here. What role does love play in business?
Gosh, I just got the chills. Well,
that's happened before.
Yeah. See, for me, the only thing that really matters is love. If you think of all the other things, that's the thing that's going to bring you safety and harmony and peace of mind. And when everything else falls apart, if love is there, we still have hope. So in business, let's think about, if you love the business and you want to do what's best for it and it's facing bankruptcy, what do you do that's right for the business and the people? You can come from a place of love and use that one concept as your standard of performance and reach excellence. I think love is underestimated. It is the power that holds us together as humans. It's the power that sometimes holds us together as an individual. If we know who we are and we love who we are and we can stick to it, to me, it is the ultimate power. It's the ultimate power.
Yeah, well said. Yeah.
I agree.
Couldn't agree 100%. More.
And like our guest on Tuesday said, that is like the question we asked you, that's a foundational question, really, when you think about it. Because love it's that gravity that we're all sort of evolving toward, whether we know it or not. And all the ugliness and the fighting of trying to get there, it's just, if you step back and look at it, it's kind of beautiful, but up close at times, man, it's a battle where love is trying to come through all these different ways, and it's just, all kinds of resistance and all kinds of trauma in the process, we'll say. But
exactly, good words. Yeah.
Yeah. I feel like it's a question we don't ask enough.
Yeah, I agree.
Well, then we certainly want to thank you. Oh, go ahead, Stephen.
Yeah. No, go for it, Mike.
Oh, yeah, I was going to say, I mean, it's just been such a rewarding conversation. Lyn, thank you so much. I think, your perspective, your experience that you've shared with us. We also want to, let our audience know if they want, to tune in, learn a little bit more. If they want to connect, where would you like them to go?
Well, you can see the website on the screen, and today or whenever they're listening, if they'll text Bliss, BLISS, 55444, if they'll text that 55444, we'll get them signed up to be on our Inspired Badass guide post. It's every every other week, I publish an article on how to navigate these challenging times with some of the elements that we've talked about today: empathy, love, courage, those sorts of things. So that is text Bliss to 55444.
Yeah, please do it. And please read the book here. Let me hold it up the screen here.
Thanks, Stephen. Thank you.
They've written a great book. Please read it. Give it to someone you love. I really, that's what I'm thinking about too when I'm reading it. It's like, oh, I know this person should probably have this book. Anyway, thank you, Lyn. To our listeners, thank you for joining us. If today's episode helped your understanding in what real powerful leadership looks like, and empathetic leadership and compassion, please be sure to subscribe, leave a review, and share this with someone you care about. And until then, we'll see you next time on the Bliss Business Podcast.
Thank you.
See you.